The years of slavery were a dark time for African Americans. The political influence slavery has made on the United States runs deep. Even after more than 150 years since Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, the effects that it has left are still evident. The history of slavery is important and should be understood by all. In this video, I will show what slavery really was and how it has left its mark on modern-day United States. To begin, slavery was a major part of the American Civil War. The northern and southern parts of the country were very different, so different in fact, that they went to war with each other. The South was pro-slavery, and so much of their economy relied on slavery, specifically agriculture. The North, however, was opposed to slavery for ethical reasons. Northerners believed slavery was a cruel and horrific institution. Quote, "The Civil War, waged from 1861 to 1865, was a conflict between the North and South that emerged from decades of economic, political, and social differences between each region. In 1863, more than a year after the first shots of the Civil War were fired at Fort Sumter, a defining moment occurred when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This order gave the war a moral purpose by making the abolition of slavery a central goal." End quote. The Emancipation Proclamation allowed slaves in the rebellious states of the South to be free. In 1865, the Civil War ended with a Northern victory over the Confederacy. To fully resolve slavery and deal with what it had created, 3 reconstructive amendments, as they were called, were born to finish what Lincoln had started. The 13th Amendment states, quote, "Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation." End quote. This amendment prohibited slavery in the U.S. and allowed slaves to be citizens. The effects that slavery have had are interesting to see. Drawing on a sample of more than 40,000 Southern whites in historical census records, we show that whites who currently live in counties that had high concentrations of slaves in 1860 are today on average more conservative and express colder feelings toward African Americans than whites who live elsewhere in the South." End quote. Where slavery was common in 1860, today there are more racist views. In 1955, 100 years after the end of the Civil War, a young teen was murdered because of his race. Quote, "While visiting family in Money, Mississippi, 14-year-old Emmett Till, an African American from Chicago, is brutally murdered for flirting with a white woman 4 days earlier. His assailants, the white woman's husband and her brother, made Emmett carry a 75-pound cotton gin fan to the bank of the Tallahatchie River and ordered him to take off his clothes. The 2 men then beat him nearly to death, gouged out his eye, shot him in the head, and then threw his body, tied to the cotton gin fan with barbed wire, into the river." End quote. Emmett Till was part of something bigger. He opened the world up to what racial injustice and equality really is, and his story that touched millions of people was a catalyst for the change of rights. It showed how slavery left its mark on the South and the nation. Emmett Till really did show the identity of a black person in the South, and his legacy stands strong today as a symbolism for change. That is why I strongly argue that slavery has smeared the ethics of our nation. While slavery has been reduced to a scarring era in this country's rich history, it remains a stain on our cultural views. Thank you.